The most extreme form of bereavement is parental bereavement, and I know firsthand of this pain after losing my baby girl Milli at just 6 days old. With no indication of complication prior to her birth, it came as a complete shock. We never got to see her eyes, we never got to hear her cry. As the weeks passed and we were riding the tsunami of grief, those around us expressed how useless they felt. They too didn't know that we felt so useless. We didn't even know what we needed, but I knew at that point that I needed to speak out. From Milli's life and death, this podcast was birthed. Little Life, Big Loss. As a safe space to talk about baby loss, grief, trauma, heartache, and hope. A safe space for lost parents to share their stories of their real-life angels. A place for our nearest and dearest to learn about our journeys and to gain a deeper understanding in how to help those who are riding the tsunami of grief. Welcome to Little Life, Big Loss. Hi there, Milli's mum here. My name is Rochelle and I am the creator and host for this podcast, Little Life, Big Loss. Whilst I hadn't planned on adding trigger warnings to the podcast, because let's be honest, our whole life and this whole podcast is one big trigger, I would like to preface a few things. Every episode I record could include any of the following: birth trauma, stillbirth, neonatal loss, termination for medical reasons, mental health, suicide, grief, and all things in and around all of this. Episodes might also mention living children, pregnancy, and pregnancy after loss. Please read the caption for a summary of what you can expect in this episode. The opinions shared by guests on my podcast are the opinions of those individuals and do not always reflect the same opinions of mine. We are not professionals, we are just lost parents sharing our story. If you hear of something that you wish to try for yourself, please seek professional guidance from a psychologist, a GP, or an OB. And finally, thank you for all the love and support that we have been receiving. I'm in love with this safe space that we have created for our babies to be spoken about in such real and raw detail. If you feel connected to an episode, please share it with someone that you think it might help. And if you would like to help our community, we have created a PayPal account, and we are asking that each time you listen to an episode, you just donate $1. If you go to PayPal and you search Little Life, Big Loss, any donations to that account will help us do so much more in this space. Thank you again so much. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Little Life, Big Loss. Today I have a beautiful mama with us. Her name is Alyssa. She's a Queensland mama as well. We were just discussing humidity and all things weather. Nothing too exciting. Oh, you're going to cry already. I know, it's so heavy. It's so heavy. So I haven't... Alyssa and I were actually texting a couple of weeks ago when I got her form, and I just was saying to her then, like, I try not to read too much of anyone's story because I like to be really authentic and in the moment. And I just went and saw a little bit of our text messages and I was like, holy shit, get the tissues, because there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to unpack. So thank you so much for trusting me. Thank you for coming on and being brave. And I know it's a lot. I know you've got a lot going on.
Thank you for being the person to break the silence.
Yeah.
Being able to talk about your baby, like having that is a blessing.
I'm so glad. I can't imagine not talking about them, right?
I know, right? He comes everywhere with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lady on Facebook message me the other day, and she said, thank you so much for sharing your story. She said, I listened to every single podcast. She said, my mum lost a baby when I think she must have been a toddler, and that she lost her little sister. It was never spoken about.
Yeah.
And I said, how is your mum now? And she said, oh, she died of alcoholism. She was an alcoholic. And I just thought, well, yeah, I'd fucking go crazy and become an alcoholic and die too if I couldn't speak. There's already ways that could...
It honestly feels like an injustice when you don't speak about them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're alive. You had your baby. They had their own personality, even if they were, like, if it was a stillborn or anything like that, they still had their own personality. How do you just push that under the carpet?
I know. They're like a little soul from conception for sure. So it's like, yeah, they have to be spoken about. I'm so glad we have this space now. And not just this space of the podcast, like Instagram, the community, like I love following the women who are all leading the way and have just done incredible things in the last 5 years or 10 years even, who are sharing what it looks like in 5 or 10 years. And even though it still looks pretty fucking messy and scary, like there's more moments of joy and more moments of amazing, beautiful things around the grief. So like I feel honored to be able to follow their journey as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hearing some of the stories of the past, it, like from what people have gone through, it just reinforces to you you're not alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And blows my mind that we didn't know more about it. Like you're like, holy fuck, I feel so naive that I didn't know this was a possibility that it would happen to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'd love to start with the usual question and ask you, who was Alyssa before she experienced baby loss?
So before I was Felix's mum, so Felix is my little baby who was a neonatal death. Mm-hmm. So before I was Felix's mum, I was Lincoln's mum. So I've got a little 7-year-old boy. Yeah. He's a true boy. He loves to run. He's wild. He's my wild child.
Yeah.
So before that as well, like I'm a hairdresser. I'm a business owner. So I have my own salon. And it was just pretty much working.
Yeah.
With Lincoln, I was pretty much a single mother from the get-go. So it was just me and him. So from the whole way through, obviously, like there's been times where I've had exes before in the past and everything, and normally it's a long-term relationship, but it just didn't really work out. And then basically with Felix's dad, so he's also Dylan. We just sort of clicked, like we say that we were twins. We actually have the same birth dates, but just different years.
Wow.
We have the same birthmark in the same spot on our stomach, that if we were belly button to belly button, our birthmark touches.
Whoa.
He also has a 7-year-old son now, and when obviously going through all the things that were similarities, I was like, when's your son's birthday? And our boys are exactly 1 month apart to the day. So,
what?
Yeah, so there were so many similarities. I was like, I found my human. So, it obviously, every relationship comes with challenges. And, we went through quite a journey before even having Felix. And which we'll probably unload more on later, but now like we have separated, there's a lot of work that we have to do for ourselves. Obviously when we found out that this was going to be Felix's fate, I was very proactive in the case of saying, look, we need to do things to help ourselves. Like I see a psychologist, everyone needs to see a psychologist down to the boys. Like it's not just a normal family experience that we're going through. Everyone needs that additional help, like professional help and support. Yeah. And so Lincoln and I, we are like, I get him to see a psychologist and a counsellor, and I see my psychologist still. Yeah. But unfortunately, that's probably where our downfall was, is that he hasn't reached out. So he's tried to deal with all of this on his own. Yeah. So basically, we separated now because we need to work on ourselves.
It makes a huge difference. I've been seeing my psych. Most people know, I've been seeing her since literally the day we got home from the hospital. My GP heard about what happened, booked me in, and she booked me in for my psych that afternoon at 2 p.m. A new psych, and I love her. Yeah. Dylan has, I suggested he see somebody quite early on, and he'd had 2 sessions with this psych. Anyway, not many people know this, but we've had a really, really, really awful week or couple of weeks, and a couple of days ago it was like almost calling it quits. It was like, this is too fucking much, right?
It's a lot to deal with without having just someone else to offload everything. Like your frustrations and everything, you're already at the max. You're trying to deal with life and deal with grief at the same time. That, yeah, everything is too much. And if you don't have someone else to be able to just word vomit to and get it all off your chest without someone taking offense to it or thinking that you're having a go at them, like you need that sounding board to be able to just like
and
offload.
Because none of it, like, I don't have the capacity to heal him. I hardly even have the capacity to heal myself. I hardly have the capacity to even breathe most days. So it's like, I can't carry you. I can't carry these things. I need you to go speak with somebody. I'm sure I frustrate the fuck out of you. So go talk to somebody about it, but a professional that has then good advice. Because if you just go talk to your mates or you talk to this person or you go drink or you do all these things, it's not going to help.
No.
And so Dylan...
It's going to escalate
the other night he said to me, he said, so how does the psych work? He said, because he was going the next day. This was only 2 days ago. He said, how does the psych work? Like, do I just do my 10 sessions and then at the end he says, this is what I think of you? And I was like, no. I said, like, you just go and have a conversation, you know? And I said, these are the things that we are currently having challenges with. I would suggest that these are the things you might want to talk to him about. And I just, said this, these are the things we're fighting about at the moment. Why don't you talk to him about that? And when he got home yesterday, I said, he kind of walked in with a bit of a pep in his step. And I said, oh, how was the psych? And he was like, so good. He goes, I walked in thinking this will be my last session. I'm not getting anything out of this. And he goes, I left with my next 6 sessions booked in.
Yeah. And it's
so I was like,
to be proactive.
Yeah, I was like, and I mean, this guy books out so far in advance. His sessions aren't until bloody June and August or some shit, but July and August. But he's on a cancellation list and he can come in sooner. But I just thought, oh, thank God, like, because you need to have those conversations with someone, like, and I think sometimes people find a psych and they don't like them, and so then they just cut it off. You've got to keep working to find something that works.
Not
it might be
everyone's going to suit everyone.
No, that's right.
Sometimes you've got to shop around to find the best person for you in your situation and what you're going through.
And I love that you have that help for Lincoln as well. That's really, really important for a child who's going through such heavy, heavy, heavy times. Because he would also, I assume, would be missing Dylan as well. So he's like, he's lost his little brother and his stepdad.
And also, like, his son as well. Like, he had someone to play with all the time. So he's, feels like he's lost everyone but me.
Oh, honey. Yeah, that's so hard. It's a lot.
Yeah. We get there.
We do.
1 day at a time.
Yeah, that's literally 1 day at a time. My sister rang me the other day. It was my birthday last Monday, and she's like, I had a really fucked day. But she's like, a couple of days later, I spoke to her, and she said, I spoke to you in the morning, and you were great. I said, yeah. And by the afternoon, I was fucked. Like, it just, it's day by day, but it's also like conversation by conversation or hour by hour. Like, it just takes one thing. I had a couple of things trigger me on that day besides just being my birthday that it just like, I just ended up sleeping the rest of the day. I was like, I can't deal.
And it can be the tiniest thing. It can appear that you're holding it together, but it just takes one tiny, and somewhat at the time, it may look insignificant thing, but it just, it's rocket. It just,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the conception of Felix.
Yeah. So basically, before Felix, like obviously I had Lincoln, I had a bit of a traumatic experience then myself. So I was obviously doing it on my own. I came home to a note left on the bench when I was 22 weeks pregnant. So I was doing it on my own. And then basically with Lincoln's birth, like it was, he just didn't want to come out. My labour was 28 and a half hours long. It was an hour and a half of pushing. I had an epidural. He came out and basically his cord was cut immediately. Like he didn't even get to be on me. It was pretty much thrown on me, cord cut, taken and bagged. He wasn't breathing at the time.
Yeah.
So then he spent time in special care nursery as well. But basically, like his delivery, it was a failed vacuum forced episiotomy. Got told this is last push before an emergency cesarean.
Yeah.
So because there's a lot of like birth trauma and also pregnancy trauma with having to do it all on my own, pregnancy was something that I actually feared.
Yeah.
Because my fear was doing it on my own again and being in the same situation. So I had always said that basically any pregnancy I have, it cannot be an accident. It has to be planned, just to sort of prepare myself to make it easier for me. Anyway, so obviously I found my human, like we just connected, and basically how it really sort of started is we went to a park one day and there was a really cute little girl on the swings, and basically this little girl made us both plucky.
No.
And I had two nieces as well, and like they, like we'd just adore the nieces. So they'd make us plucky too. And so we decided, we're like, let's be stupid, let's try for a baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, we tried, and basically first time trying, we were successful. And yeah, so then we were pregnant. He has a previous history with like alcohol abuse. So he was an alcoholic. So soon after I actually was pregnant, he actually admitted himself to rehab. Not that I ever saw any of the negative sides or traits and behaviours that he had. Like it, basically, with all the experience I had, it was the guilt that had come past from drinking. So he'd have a few drinks and then the next day he'd have a lot of guilt.
Okay.
So basically he got to a point, he's like, I think I want to, like it was 3 months that he was toing and fromming, going, I think I should go to rehab. I think I should go to rehab. No, I won't. Yes, I will.
Drinking every day?
Some days he wasn't. Like he'd get to maybe like 5 days and start drinking. So yeah, like he tried to have his own self-control with it. Yeah. And then when he did drink, he wouldn't necessarily wipe himself off, but he would then have that guilt afterwards. Like he'd just say to me, he'd like, take my car keys, just don't let me, like he was happy to drink at home, but he's just like, don't let me leave. So I'd take the car keys and I'd hide him in a different spot around the house just so that he wasn't drink driving or anything like that.
Yeah.
So basically I was 5 weeks pregnant. So we obviously knew that we were pregnant. And he decided, no, this is the time, I want to go to rehab. So he was in rehab for 4.5 months of the first part of the pregnancy, because up in Toowoomba here, they've got a longer program for them. They've got 2 stages of it. So yeah, he went to rehab pretty soon after. So that was in December. So it was really touch and go. I'm a big family orientated person. I love my family. Yeah. So for the first 21 days while they're in there, they can't have any communication with anyone. That was really tough for me because that also took us over Christmas. He wasn't, like, we weren't meant to see him or hear from him until pretty much the new year. But basically with circumstances and case by case, they actually allowed him to come out for a few hours on Christmas Day. So that was really nice.
Yeah, that's nice. And did you have his son while he was away?
No, so his son was with his ex for the whole time.
Yeah.
Until he started getting like day releases and he'll be out for a few hours, then we were able to get him for those few hours so we could spend some time with him. And then it wasn't until he came out that started getting him more regularly and on a week on, week off sort of rotation. But when I was Christmas, I was about 7 weeks, and I'm very impatient. I like to know things like soon.
Yeah, so like yesterday.
Like tell me yesterday. Tell me 3 days ago. I need to know now.
Yeah.
I organised and got one of the sneak peek tests done from one of my local 3D ultrasound places here. And basically Sneak Peek is an American company, but they test for the Y chromosome. So basically it's a sample of your blood that you can do from 6 weeks, and it's a 99.9% accuracy to whether you're having a boy or a girl.
You are impatient.
I'm very impatient. So
never even heard of this test.
So the 23rd of December, so 2022, that is when I was just shy of 7 weeks, and I found out that Felix was a boy.
No.
So on Christmas Day, when I found out that he was able to come out, we actually were able to do a gender reveal with my family.
Cute.
Now, I've already obviously got one son. Dylan's got a 7-year-old son, but he does also have another son that he had many, many years ago that's interstate, so he doesn't get to see him. So he's already got 2 boys, and it was so funny because when the gender reveal went off and it showed a boy, he's like, "Are you kidding?" Like, both of us, I hate to say this, but both of us did have that little bit of gender disappointment to start off with. Because I'm a hairdresser. I may not be that girly, but I'm like, they got cute little dresses. Like, I could dress up a girl.
It's a thing.
And so when it was a boy, I was like, okay, well, as long as it's happy and healthy, you know, it's fine. And pretty much every scan, I was like, "Are you sure? Are you definitely sure it's a,
is there a vagina,
a boy?
please?
Like, I really have a doodle." And then I think it was the so it's one of a lady that I know really well that I've known for quite a few years who actually has the ultrasound place. So I went in there and I'm like, "Emma, are you sure?" And so she did a scan and she had a look. And while actually scanning, you could see him put his hands down, play with it, pee. So he peed at the same time. And we're like, yeah, he's definitely
it's a boy.
There's no
That's
doubts about
so
it.
funny.
He's definitely a boy. So the hard part for us was we didn't have a boy's name picked.
Yeah.
We had a girl's name picked from before we conceived. We knew if she was a girl, what her name would be.
Yeah.
So
what was it?
Well, I'm not going to say because...
okay, go. Keep going. Okay.
Yeah, that one I'm not going to say yet. So we had like 20 names that we were toing and throwing from with boy names, because ones I liked, he didn't. Ones he liked, I didn't. So Felix was one that we were like, "Oh, I don't know."
I love Felix.
That. Like,
it's so cute.
I don't know a Felix, and you know, I'm very much on, I know a so-and-so, and they were an absolute turd growing up. I don't want to name my child that. Like, they'll follow suit. So it was really hard. But, I was like, I don't know any Felixes. So, and neither was him. And so even to the point when we got Felix's diagnosis, we still at that day didn't have a name. And when we were actually sitting and waiting to see another obstetrician, we were sitting there and we're like, we still need a name. Like, we need to decide on a name. And it was right there that we were like, well, Felix it is. So yeah, basically I had a little bit of morning sickness. I've had morning sickness with like Lincoln and Felix. Felix wasn't as bad as Lincoln, so he was a bit kinder to me. But basically throughout the pregnancy, it was like nice and cruisy. I didn't have any problems. My scans all came back perfect. There was no reason for concern. 20 weeks as well, everything looked great and perfect. I was I go through private, so I had my private obstetrician. So basically every time I'd see him, he'd do an ultrasound and we'd see up and we'd see how it's going. When I had my 28-week appointment, it was 27 weeks and 5 days. I went to the appointment and still everything was running smoothly. I just had the GD test done and that came back perfect. There was no problems there.
Diabetes,
And went and had a scan, and he just said, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to refer you for some more tests." He's like, "It looks like you've got low amniotic fluid." So he's like, "We've just got to check to make sure, see what's happening. So I'll give you a referral so you can go to like Queensland X-ray, have a scan done by there, see what we find, and also to have blood tests done as well to make sure that everything's working okay with me if anything flags up." So basically, I immediately, straight away, went for the blood tests, and the amount of testing they had to do, I think there was like 9 little cases of blood they had to take. It was the maximum amount of blood they could take from someone in a session. And I said to the lady, I'm like, look, my body goes funny sometimes with blood tests. I'm like, can I just lay down? Because you don't need paperwork. I don't need paperwork. Like, and you're taking the maximum out.
Yeah.
I just want
need
to
a
lay
rest.
down. I got a lot going on. There's probably jets I'll pass out, so let me lay down. So anyway, so we did the blood test and that was fine. And I managed to that day as well, get an emergency appointment with Queensland X-ray. So I think it was like 2:00 in the afternoon. I was able to go and get my scan done.
Yeah.
So I went up there and they were brilliant. Like they sort of explained a few things. They had a student in as well. So they were able to explain a few things. And I'm not silly when it comes to ultrasounds. Like I can see different things too. I don't just see a fuzzy little thing. I can understand where bits and pieces are. And so Felix was breech as well at that stage. So but he was breech but sideways. So his head was up behind my belly button, but his spine was heading out to my right side, and then his feet were going across.
Okay. So do they call that they're saying that transverse?
Yeah, I think so. I forget which one it is exactly, but transverse does ring a bell.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically sitting in an L position inside.
Wow. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So his head was still up. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so they were like, oh, yeah, you know, that's probably the best breech to be, that some obstetricians can deliver a baby when they are breeched like that. And yeah, so moving forward, they didn't really say too much about it. They said, yeah, it's definitely low amniotic fluid. That's pretty much all that they gave me. By 4:30 that afternoon, 4:45, I actually had a phone call from my obstetrician, and he just said, look, I've just been given a phone call from the doctors there. You don't have low amniotic fluid. You have no amniotic fluid around him. So immediately with that sentence, he's like, so you've got an emergency appointment down at the Mater at the MFM, so maternal fetal medicine. That's on Friday. So that was the Tuesday afternoon I was speaking to him. He said, you've got an appointment on Friday in the morning to head down there.
Why wouldn't they, if you were almost 28 weeks, why didn't they just take Bub out then? Like, why didn't you just have an emergency Caesar or?
Because they didn't know when the amniotic fluid stopped. Okay. So we needed further testing to find out when it stopped. Because I've had a 101 crash course in this now.
Mm-hmm, I bet, yeah.
So
teach me everything.
A mother produces the amniotic fluid to 20 weeks. From 20 weeks, that's when the baby is the one who's responsible for the amniotic fluid, of them cycling through developing the lungs. Right. So obviously they inhale the amniotic fluid to develop the lungs. It then goes through their system, like they ingest it. It helps like their kidneys, their liver, and obviously goes through and they wee it out, and it's a full circle. And then
cycle again, okay.
So they didn't know when it stopped, because obviously my last scan, everything looked fine and perfect, and then all of a sudden I've had none. So they wanted to do the testing just to see, and being with MFM, with how advanced their machines are, you can see a lot more. So they wanted answers before we got there. And basically I said to my obstetrician, like, he's a godsend, I absolutely love him. I said to him, I'm like, I have insomnia as it is to start off with, and I'm like, I'm not going to sleep until this appointment. I'm like, can there be a way that I be admitted to hospital and be put under observation just for peace of mind, so that he's okay? Because I'm like,
amazing.
I know having no amniotic fluid is not a good thing. Like, is he even going to survive till Friday?
Good for you.
And basically, he's like, we don't know. And then, so basically he's like, give me a moment, I'll make a phone call. And within 5 minutes, I got a phone call, and basically he's like, the private hospital is expecting you up there tonight. So I was admitted for those days and discharged pretty much the time that I needed to be able to get from Toowoomba to Brisbane. Yeah. To drive down and go to the appointment. So
how far is Toowoomba to Brisbane?
So depending on traffic, normally about an hour and a half.
Okay,
so,
not too far.
When I've got to head down to the Mater from where I live, it's just about an hour and a half drive.
I love the Mater. I love them. Yeah. I actually feel really connected to your story just listening. I'm like, oh, I love them.
Yeah, with how the whole situation, how it all panned out, like I'm being very blessed with my care that I have received.
Yeah.
Anyway, so moving forward, basically Dylan and I had sort of expected that, okay, we're probably going to have a preemie baby, a very preemie baby in the next couple of days. So it was 28 weeks by the time, it was 28 weeks and 1 day when we got down to the mother. So we expected that we'll probably be in there for a little while and have a little baby. Anyway, so we got to the appointment and we're waiting. We go in and basically they had said that normally when it's the amniotic fluid, when there's an issue and being no amniotic fluid, it comes down to more the renal organs and the digestive organs of baby. Probably not even 5 minutes, because obviously kidneys and that sort of thing, kidneys, bladder, looking were the main focus of baby. And like I said, I'm not silly when it comes to ultrasounds, like I can see different things. And with how advanced their machines are, like they focused on the kidneys. And so on the screen, I could see the actual kidney shape of Felix's. But you could also see, it looked like a clove of garlic, how it was all segmented. So his kidneys had already completely calcified. So at this stage, like I could see the little segments. He didn't mention anything until he basically had all his findings. And afterwards, he's just listing like the facts on the whiteboard there of like what his findings are. And obviously, I think it's called anhydramyosis, which is no amniotic fluid. So he's like, we've got that. And basically it goes down and he's got like, it will impact on lung development, but with calcification, renal failure. I remember just gasping out loud. The next thing he said was poor survival.
He said what?
Poor survival. So basically, he said that he has renal failure and there is a high chance that he wouldn't survive in utero. So obviously we had they lined up a obstetrician who was in Brisbane Mater to be there to do a consultation in case we needed our care to be taken on down there. Anyway, we walked into that appointment and basically, sorry, I'll back up a little bit.
So there was that other doctor and appointment, was that at
that
your
was
private? Oh, that was
so that was, maternal fetal medicine. So while he was there as well, he must have made the call and we end up having a surgeon for like a pediatric surgeon, that's the right word, come down, and he even had a quick look at like the ultrasound as well. So pretty much while I'm trying to take in this information and go, okay, my baby's not going to survive, I'm pretty much getting told there's a research program that's happening with Pregen at the moment that, you know, will basically help get more Medicare codes done so you can have genetic testing more easily accessible and affordable. He's like, I know this is not really the right time, but do you want to be a part of it? Because basically your case will go into the knowledge pile.
Did they need to know that answer right there in that moment?
I had to be pregnant to be a part of it.
Fuck.
So I'm like, can you back up? Like, start again. I'm still stuck at renal failure. Like, you're going to have to repeat all of that to me. So basically what it meant, he's like, if you take part of this program, they will provide you with full genetic testing.
Right. Amazing.
So he's like, they will do all the genetic testing there to find out what's actually going on, because he's like, there's hundreds of reasons as to why this could happen. But
so were you eligible based on it being an amniotic fluid problem, or was it what made you eligible?
I don't know the full criteria for it, but it's just to try to allow more genetic testing. So obviously he had a strong sense, like he even wrote on the board about a recessive condition. And so he obviously had a strong thought behind it that it could have been recessive, meaning that we've got a 1 in 4 chance of it happening. So that's why he sort of pushed for it more. And because that's what it's based on, because if it's a genetic or chromosomal abnormality or something like that, to try to push for more testing to be covered by Medicare, because obviously there's only a select few that they cover at the moment. And some of them, you still have to pay such a crazy amount to have the testing done.
Just to put a price on this, since Milli's passed away, we've paid $2,000 to have her DNA results come back so that we knew what she had, because it wasn't diagnosed in utero. Last week, we just paid $990 to have full carrier screening for Dylan and myself. And we paid $500 to be tested for this particular disease that Milli has. That's all out of pocket, no rebates.
So that's what they're trying to change. And basically, while I was there, they're like, if we do a CVS, they said they'd like to have an amniocentesis done because of the gestation, but because I had no amniotic fluid. So amniocentesis is taking a sample of the amniotic fluid to test baby's DNA, whereas the CVS is taking a sample of the placenta, because obviously placenta has baby's DNA within it as well.
And normally both really high risk, right? But because of Felix's diagnosis, they were still wanting to do it?
So I had to sign the paperwork to say that I understand that there is a high risk that he may pass away from having the test done. So that was also another consideration. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do here? And it's like, I need an answer now for them. So we end up going through with it and being a part of pre-gen. So they did the genetic screening and everything for Felix. They did the carrier testing for Dylan and I, and everything.
Full carrier, or just the 3 Medicare rebate ones, or?
No, I think a full, because with the results that came through, it's, they were able to determine a little bit more. So we went and did that. So took part of the program, had the CVS done, and oh my gosh, that was the most painful thing that I had ever done. It was horrendous.
How did they do it?
So with me, it was like 2 needles. So the first needle went in.
To your belly?
Yeah, into my belly. And my placenta was interior as well, so it made it quite easy for them to access. But 1 needle went in, and I don't know fully, but I have a feeling it helps open up the placenta a little bit. Okay. Basically, it made my stomach start to contract. So you can't move in this procedure. So I am laying flat as flat on one of the ultrasound beds. So they're definitely not comfy. The flattest that I can be, and I'm like, I do not want to see any of this. I'm covering my face. I've got Dylan over my face as well, because I'm like, I do not want to see anything. So it's done by ultrasound, so they're guiding by ultrasound. So I've got like 3 people around me, and then they've taken the sample, and I'm like trying to stay still. And then my body's gone into its little stupid mode, where I'm like, I'm going to pass out. I can feel that I've obviously worked myself up and like everything's going on. I'm about to pass out. And I can tell anyone before I go to pass out.
This is all on the same day? Is this all
this is all the same day. This is all in the same appointment.
Wow.
It was just like bam, bam, bam. So we've done that. I've almost passed out. I've got cold compresses on my face. I've got a nurse giving me oxygen, because if I pass out, the nerves in my legs go, so it looks like I have an epileptic fit, but I don't.
Perfect.
So I'm like, then I'm freaking out going, if I pass out, I'm moving. Like, I've got this big needle in me and I'm going to be moving.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm having a little panic attack at the same time. It doesn't help when you're on the verge of passing out.
This is just a recipe for absolute fucking disaster.
So I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, they've given me oxygen. And after that, I'm fine. Like, they've done the procedure. It's fine. I didn't pass out. So I was like, yay me. I was really lucky I didn't get too much pain or anything, because obviously they say that you can get quite a lot of cramping, or you can have some spotting or blood loss or anything after a CBS procedure. So I was really lucky I didn't have any of that. And then we had about 2 hours to kill before our obstetrician appointment down there. So we went and got lunch, as much as we didn't want to eat, but we're like, we should probably eat. Went and got lunch, and then we had our appointment. And basically, we're like, okay, he did mention beforehand that we could probably look at a termination due to medical reasonings, or we could look at having an early delivery down at Marta, or we could just continue and progress with the pregnancy. They were pretty much the three options we were given. And so we were like, okay, I don't want to terminate. I have this life. I can feel him move inside me. So I pretty much ruled that out straight away. We went to the appointment with the obstetrician, and basically we walked in the doors and she's like, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. They're your three options. All of my family are in Toowoomba. So I said to her right there and then, I'm like, I'm not staying down here. I said, I want to go home. I want to be with my family.
Yeah.
So basically I was like, I will talk to my obstetrician up here and we will make plans and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So because of my family being in Toowoomba, my concern was if I was down at the Marta, like, basically I was told if he survived to birth, he would require palliative care from birth, and that's it. So my concern was, okay, it's a much bigger hospital, they are busy. Are there going to be restrictions with who comes in? Is there going to be time restrictions? My family's got a long way to travel. We've then got to look at accommodation, because they're not going to just be here for a few hours and want to go home. So that's why I was like, I want to go back to Toowoomba and we'll make a plan from there. So we came back and basically I continued through with the pregnancy. It took 2 weeks, thereabouts, and basically I got a phone call from Marta MFM, and they said that the chromosome testing had come all back, and of Felix, and basically he had no chromosomal abnormalities. Everything was perfect there. He had nothing chromosomal. It was so in between that time frame as well. We also then had genetic counselling done through Genes Australia. So we had an appointment with them, and basically them trying to get a bit of a family history between Dylan and myself to try to work out. And basically that first appointment, it came through and she basically said that it could be just his kidney development, which obviously the development of the kidneys happens between 5 to 11 weeks is the main time frame. And I was under a lot of stress then too, so I did start blaming myself a lot. So obviously, I'm doing it on my own, but like I've said before, I am a salon owner. So in between that time frame, we were in a heritage listed building, and we had a wall of water come through from the story above us. So my salon flooded, and then 2 weeks later, the concrete roof started falling, and that was the week before Christmas. and trying to get that sorted.
Busiest time of year for a salon owner, yeah.
Yeah.
And your partner was in rehab, I believe, at that time.
He was in rehab. So I was trying to do all this all on my own. So stress levels were high. Didn't know what was going to happen. Didn't know if we'd find a salon space, how long I'd have to be closed for, because it was deemed workplace health and safety. It was a liability for us to work. We managed to get that sorted quite quick and was able to resume work, and still had problems for months after. But anyway, so I was under a lot of stress then. So I blamed myself for my stress levels that I caused this for him. The other thing that they did mention is that there are some conditions and diseases conditions that babies can get, that the female is the carrier for it. Females don't show symptoms.
Wow.
But if they have males, they do. I forget the actual term of what that's like. So I'm like, again, it's me. It's me doing this. Or the third one was that there was a genetic, I wouldn't say compatibility, but we had the same genetic mutation, Dylan and I, and that we were silent carriers for the same genetic fault. Yeah. And we've given both our dodgy genes to Felix. That's cool. Yeah. So there were the three options. So the whole way through, because I'm like, all I hear is me.
Yeah.
It's all my fault.
And we carry them, right? Like, it's the guilt is fucking wild. I hear you.
It's horrendous. So it took 4 weeks from when we had the CBS done to get his genetic results. So it was 31 weeks and something.
And you still hadn't birthed him?
I still hadn't birthed him. He was still, I wouldn't really say floating around, because he couldn't move much.
Was he? Could you feel him moving or anything?
So you could. The one thing people don't realise too much with when you don't have any amniotic fluid, and when your placenta is anterior, obviously it's protecting the stomach. There's no buffer between baby's movements and your organs. So having no amniotic fluid and him moving meant that every kick, every attempt of him turning, he was belting up my bowels. So the best way to describe it was like intense gastro pain of when he moved. He was causing a lot of pain for me because there was absolutely no buffer.
I was going to ask you before if they mentioned, was there any risk to you of having a baby with no
amniotic? Not at that stage. Obviously, the risk was going to be baby. Mm-hmm. So after I had come back to Toowoomba, and sort of around the same time that I found out the chromosomal, so that 2-week mark, basically I was told that his condition is severe, and that they didn't actually expect him to survive past 32 weeks gestation. They expected him to pass away in utero before that point. So it was, I think it was 31 weeks and 6 days when we got to have our final counselling session with Genes Australia, and Dr. Di Milms, she was able to provide us with answers. Yeah. And basically it came back that Dylan and I share the same genetic fault. Wow. And it's the PHKD1 gene, or if it's not that way, it's the PKHD1. So basically it's a genetic mutation of that gene where it can impact on kidneys and liver. And if I look through my family history, we have a few little problems on my mum's side with that are related around kidneys and liver. So I'd say that's my gene path where I've got it from. So because we're silent
But
carriers,
Dylan also carries it as well.
He carries the exact same gene, genetic. So not only are we twins with the same birthday, the same birthmark, we also have the same genetic fault.
Wow.
So that comes down to means that it's a recessive condition that Felix had, which means it's a 1 in 4 probability of any of our children having it. But basically the condition's name, what he was diagnosed with, is called autosomal recessive polycystic kidney disease, so ARPKD. The statistics of ARPKD is 30% of babies will be classified while in utero will pass away, and that's severe category. So that's the category that Felix was meant to be put in. 35% of babies will pass away before the first 12 months of their life with end-stage renal failure, and the remaining 35% will be diagnosed with end-stage renal failure before their 10th birthday.
Wow.
They would require dialysis. They would need liver and kidney transplants, be on any rejection drugs. They are a higher candidate for heart attacks and strokes, and
very, very poor quality of life.
So lots of hospital visits and everything for anyone who's able to survive past that 12-month mark. So being told that he was meant to pass away before 32 weeks, we got these news at 31 and 6. 2 days later, I had an obstetrician appointment with my ob. Anyway, basically because of the amount of pain that I was in, I still wasn't sleeping. They still gave me sleeping tablets and they did absolutely nothing for me. Being that I was then 32 weeks, we were going to push to try to find a date that we could have him. Because I didn't want to, I knew that if I went full term, I would be delivering a stillborn. I didn't want that. Knowing of what this was going to be our fate, my thing is if I get to spend a few minutes with my baby, that's all I want. So we spoke to Dr. Homer about having an early delivery, like what we could do. And obviously he said, look, with his breech position, if it was like 36, 37 weeks, you would probably be able to try a vaginal birth. But because at that stage, baby is still out of proportion, like their body and their head don't sort of match up. It's like you'd be able to birth the body quite easily, but the head would get stuck. So he's like, you would just be best to have a cesarean. And I was fully okay with that because I knew how traumatic the birth was for Lincoln. I was like, whatever is less stress for Felix, with little time that we have, I don't want to put him under any additional stress that's not needed. So I was happy to go cesarean. I should also say that the reason that they didn't expect Felix to survive past 32 weeks in utero is because of obviously the rapid growth of baby and the amniotic the amniotic fluid. They have a higher chance of basically compressing the umbilical cord, which will cut off oxygen to them. So that's where the risk is and why they didn't think he'd live past that point. So it was a little bit of a fight for us after we were trying to get an early delivery with the private hospital that we have up here. They've never had a case like Felix's before. So I actually had my obstetrician and a paediatrician that I had never met before advocating on my behalf so hard to try to allow them to give me an early delivery. And the hospital, like the executives of the hospital, were not coming to the party. Basically, they made the comments of that if we did it, being that they're a Catholic hospital, if we looked at an early delivery, they were worried that it would be a form of termination. And basically, I sat there and I'm like, I don't want to deliver a stillborn. I want to have time with my baby. That's not a termination. No. He's not meant to survive. Like, I just want minutes with my baby.
Fuck.
And the reason they were so cautious is they've never had a case like Felix's. They've never had a baby that's required palliative care from birth. So they wanted us to go to the MARTA because that was obviously the safe zone for them. And basically Dylan and I are like, we're happy to sign something. Like, this is what we want. This is our wishes. There's nothing going to come from us. Like, there's no legal repercussions or anything. There's nothing going to we just want time with our baby and for our family to be around. Anyway, so because I still wasn't sleeping at that point, my obstetrician came out and he's like, I have an idea. He's like, I'm going to admit you for observations because you don't sleep. And he's like, and then the hospital has to have more meetings about you and your case. Anyway, so that Friday night, so the Friday afternoon I had the obstetrician appointment. The Friday night I was admitted to hospital and he came around and did rounds at 7:30 at night and he's like, so at this stage we're looking at Sunday for delivery.
Yay.
So we managed to get what we had wished for. And they came to the party and approved for an early delivery at 32 weeks and 3 days.
Yeah, that's so good.
So, like, it was intense. It is horrible for anyone who knows the fate of their baby and knows that they're meant to pass away in utero, because you don't have a moment where you rest. Because when they sleep, you wonder if that's when they've passed.
Yeah. It's so fucked up.
It is pure torture.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I got to the hospital, I can't fault the midwives. I absolutely love them. I'm still in communication with some of them. Yeah. They're an absolute angel. Anyway, so I have a lot of dark humour and I always got to see the funny side in life. So I had a great time at hospital because the nurses and myself were giving each other shit constantly. Like, it was great.
I feel like a lot of medical professionals have that similar humour because that's how they survive these
coping
things.
mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving forward, we came to the day of Felix's delivery, and basically it was early in the morning. They said, of it being a Sunday, it will be a little bit quieter throughout the maternity ward and the birthing suites to be able to do it. So I'll have a bit more one-on-one care. Before my obstetrician, before he prepped himself for the surgery, he basically came around and obviously did a brief little consult with me to make sure that everything's all good and I'm aware of everything. But basically, because of him being breech and no amniotic fluid, the only way to get him out safely was to have a classical cesarean with extended incisions. So basically, a classical cesarean is when they cut the uterus vertically. And having the extended incisions. And so he also told me straight away, he's like, being that it needs to be this, it will be high risk. You will not be able to have a vaginal birth ever again.
Yeah.
You'll only be able to have cesareans in the future. And because we have to make extended incisions, there is a higher chance that you will bleed out. If you bleed out, you'll be having a hysterectomy right there and then on the table.
Perfect.
So I'm like, well, everything else has gone wrong. So I'll just expect to have a hysterectomy by the end of it.
Why? What's the extended excision? What
because
incisions?
The amniotic fluid must help them, give lubrication to get them out.
Sure.
Whereas by not having them, it's a little bit harder to grab them and pull them. So, and obviously being extended, they're cutting more blood vessels and everything. So there's a higher chance of more blood loss. So they prepped me for worst case scenario. So I had the largest cannula possible in my arm, ready for a blood transfusion. I basically had the mark 4 months after delivery still from where that was put in. I remember of the day, I was sitting there talking to the anaesthetist who put it in. And obviously I said, I'm not going under general anaesthetic. It's done by spinal block. I am being alert for this whole thing. I don't care how bad it is.
Yep.
I need to be alert because if he's only here for 2 minutes. I need to be alert. Anyway, so the anaesthetist, like, he was lovely. He knew what it would have been like for us because his mum had a stillborn. So he was very compassionate. He was amazing. But yeah, my biggest concern at the time was like he's getting my arm ready to put the needle in to do the cannula, and I'm like, I can't feel my arm. Like, he's like, no, you've got an hour before you're gonna have problems. I'm like, but I can't feel my arm. Like, it was full on
traumatic. Yeah,
I was like, my arm really hurts now. So yeah, if anyone's not aware of this, is sometimes the anaesthetist assistant is the one who is less hands-on during a cesarean procedure. So she actually took my phone. So she would have taken about 180 photos. Wow. And we have a handful of videos as well. So
amazing.
We at least had that memory we could look back on.
What an absolute legend.
Yeah.
Love that.
And she's sitting there, you know, stroking my face and playing with my eyebrows. And I'm like, love, you're going to be coming home with me. Like,
yeah, I love
lovely.
you.
I'm like, I need you in my life.
Oh, what a honey.
So yeah, everything, like I said, the whole medical team that I had were amazing. I can't fault them one bit at all.
So did you end up, that was in Toowoomba, not Marta?
Yeah, that was in Toowoomba. So we're able to do it in Toowoomba.
Yeah.
So at 9:17 a.m. on the 18th of June, Felix was born. He screamed and cried from the moment he was born.
Oh, yay. What a little honey.
So the whole time he was placed on my chest. And he stayed there while they were finishing me up. Luckily, I didn't bleed out as much as they had expected. So my body was being kind to me. So I didn't need a hysterectomy.
Yay.
And they're completely fine. He was struggling to breathe, obviously. He had severely underdeveloped lungs. So they didn't put him in on palliative care. They didn't put him under the tubes for it. He just had oxygen that was pretty much flowing in his face to keep it there, just to increase the oxygen. So he was able to stay on me for pretty much the whole time. And Dylan was there as well. Dylan was able to cut the cord. So we got to spend that time with him. Then basically when they were sort of finishing me up and getting ready to transport me into recovery, they put Felix on the baby resus table, gave him a little bit of more oxygen. Dylan was able to put a nappy on him and do everything like that. And then they took us into, instead of a recovery room, they took us into one of the biggest birthing suites that they had at the hospital because it would be a bit more comfortable. And basically he was able to be on me the whole time. I would have been only in that room for about 15 minutes. And I said to my midwife, I said, can I call the family? So our family consisted of Dylan's mum and son, my mum, my dad, my son, and my sister. That's who we wanted. And I said, there's going to be this many people. Are we able to get them to come up so that they can meet him? And they allowed us to. So we were able to make that phone call. While we were waiting for them to come, we had the paediatrician come around with a nurse as well and said, look, with obviously he's struggling. This is a good hour after he managed to survive past a few minutes. So this was over an hour. And they're like, oh, do you want to look at giving him some morphine? Just to so that he's not in too much pain or anything. And because the family were coming up, and from my experience with grandparents when having morphine, and obviously he's a lot more frail, I just said to him, I'm like, will that make him go quicker? And they just said, I don't know. And I said, I need to wait until my family's here. So my family were all able to come up. They were all able to meet him. I was a protective mama where I was like, no one can hold him.
Of course.
I've got him. No one's holding him. And then his breathing sort of stabilised a little bit. And I basically said to them all, I'm like, if you want to hold him and get a photo with him, now's your chance.
Yeah.
It's like, it's now or never. So basically it was a case of they sat down in the seat, passed Felix, passed back. Like, that was it. It was such a brief hold. My sister was the last person to have a nurse. And that was his last call.
Oh. It's so precious.
So that's the last time you heard him cry.
Yeah.
So then he came back to me and was on my chest. And his breathing was very, very laboured. But
Fuck.
We started putting on music, like soft music in the room. And it was pretty much just waiting for time to pass by.
Yeah.
I know everyone has their own little beliefs as well, but all of my grandparents have passed. Dylan's grandmother has passed, and that's one person in his family that he had the closest bond with. Anyway, so we were listening to music, and his grandmother, his nana, really, really loved Elvis, would always play Elvis. And I just was playing a random mix of music that was soft, like soft covers.
Yeah.
And there was a cover done, and it was a really like soft version of Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis.
Oh.
And that was his song. That was the song Felix took his last breath to.
Oh.
So, to me, that reassured that he may have left us, but he's gone straight to his grandparents.
Yeah, of course. It was like her saying, I've got him. I've got him.
It was a sign to say that we're here.
That's so beautiful. That is so beautiful.
So, yes, he passed away peacefully on my chest with Dylan's arms wrapped around.
Fuck. So beautiful. And so shit. So fucked and so shit. But so beautiful. Like, fuck. Because obviously I had a few weeks up my sleeve of knowing that this was the fate. So I organised for a photographer to come take photos, to get someone to come up to the hospital to do castings. I just had to give them a day because obviously that I didn't know. I organised to get teddies all made that had Felix's name on it, so that basically Felix could be sent with one in his coffin, and that each of the boys had one, we had one, and like my mum, my sister, and all of that, they could have their Felix there, and know that the identical copy was with him. So I arranged and got all that done. The day that Felix passed away, the photographer that I had lined up, her car broke down. So the midwives are like, we've got this. And basically they made calls to Heartfelt. Yeah, and we ended up getting Heartfelt to come up. So that was really beautiful. We got to have photos of him, and like as horrible as it sounds, like I've seen photos of stillborn babies, and it's heartbreaking for me to see it. So I was like, I don't want my photos to look like stillborn, like having all of that, like the blood pooling and everything.
So we were really lucky for the fact that probably about an hour after he passed, that's when the photographer came. So we didn't have much cooling. He obviously was a bit more pale, but he still had colour. So I basically got photos of him with how he looked at them. So I didn't have that trigger. And I basically pre-planned all of this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know whether I want to look at it in the future or what.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I have one chance to do this, and if I don't do this, am I going to regret not having these stuff later? So I was like, I don't even know if I want to see it, but we'll just go with it. And I'm very pleased that I actually did do all of that. Dylan and I, once our family had all left, we were able to give Felix a bath, just to obviously clean him up, get rid of the blood and gunk off him. And he was in the cold pot then for basically 3 days, in the room with us. So we got to spend
so
that time.
Beautiful.
Yeah. We were so conscious of, like, because obviously we knew that he had to stay nice and cold. So the more contact that we had, we'd warm up, and obviously we're like, we don't want to warm his body up too much. So we'd pick him up and hold him a little bit, and then it's like, okay, we've got to put him back now. You need to preserve him that little bit longer.
Yeah.
But we had decided that so that was the Sunday that I had him, by the Wednesday, that it was time for him for his care to go over to the funeral home.
Yeah.
And basically, I was kicking myself. I was like, I can't just sit in bed and wallow. So the next day after the cesarean, I started doing my walks. I started getting up and walking the corridor. I think the nurses probably started getting sick of me by the end of it, because they'd just see me walk up, walk back, do my walks, get my exercise in, so that I could actually be more mobile. Because I just said to them, I'm like, I can't sit here and wallow. It's not going to help my recovery. I need to get up and I need to get moving.
Did they end up doing the T incision for you, the classical?
Yeah, so I had to have a classical.
Yeah.
So, yes. So, obviously, the external scar is horizontal, but the scar in my uterus is vertical.
Yeah, I had the same thing.
Yeah, just to give them more room to get him out. So, yeah, by the Wednesday, we had organised to get the funeral home to come up and take his care. And pretty much that morning, I just said to the nurses, I wasn't meant to be discharged till the Friday. I said, I'm out. I'm going this afternoon. If my baby's not here, I'm not here.
Yeah.
So they knew they couldn't. They knew they wouldn't win.
Yeah. No, they let us go as well.
We'll organise all your discharge stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, because I'm going to be doing the exact same things that I'm doing here at home. I can do it from home. If I have problems, then I come back. So, yeah, I end up discharging myself. And, well, they obviously let me.
Yeah.
And we got the family to all come up the day that, firstly, the funeral home came to take him. And that was the family's last chance to say goodbye. So while we were in the hospital, we also had pastoral care come around, and they did like a little service for him.
Yeah.
So that was really beautiful, and we just had our family there as well. And yeah, so he left, and that was the last chance for the family to say goodbye. Dylan and I decided that obviously once they had him, we organised an appointment to go to the funeral home to make the arrangements, and we got a viewing. We had basically said to ourselves that that's our goodbye. That's our painful goodbye.
Yeah. Fuck.
So what we had decided with Felix, we didn't bury him, we cremated him. We didn't do a service or anything, because they're like, what do you say about a baby that's lived for 3 hours? So 3 hours and 12 minutes, how long he lived for. So like, what do you say? So we had decided that we'd do a cremation. We wouldn't have a service then and there. On my mum's side of the family, one of mum's sisters was actually a stillborn and was buried in a public grave here many, many, many years ago. My mum has been able to purchase that plot. So she
What do you mean a public grave? What does that mean?
So it means going back years ago when it happened, it could have been a case of if there was a death that had no family, or if they couldn't afford for an actual plot or grave, that there was some cemeteries would have a public grave where basically they would bury the body. So about 30 years, I could be wrong with my time frame, but 30 years before Jan, my mum's sister, who was a stillborn, before she passed, there was another baby, and I'm pretty sure her name was Lorna. So she's buried there as well. So there's two babies in that plot. And normally when there's different family members who are buried within it, the cemetery doesn't necessarily let you to purchase that plot without the other family members' consent. It was very hard to actually contact that original baby's family members to see whether they wanted anything. But just before I had Felix, my mum was actually able and granted permission to purchase that plot. So she's purchased that plot where Jan is. So I had decided that, okay, well, we'll cremate Felix and we'll inter his ashes into that grave. And that will be like our communal resting place, because then much the same for myself. When I pass away, I'll get myself cremated and I'll go in there too. It'll just be filled with all family members.
That's beautiful.
So that's what I had decided. And basically we got to the funeral home and I was like, I don't want an urn because I'm just still visualising your classical urn. And I'm like, I just want to inter his ashes. And we got there and we're sitting there and they had examples of some of the urns there, and there was a little blue butterfly. So the poor little bugger, he has gone in 4 ways now. Because they'll also be in there as well. They also have necklaces and pendants that you can inter ashes into as well. So I have a little butterfly necklace. So that's got Felix in it.
Yeah.
Dylan's got a cross that's got his ashes in it. Then I've got a little blue butterfly that is just right there. And then I've got the interment box that he'll still go into the grave. So
the poor little bugger. You're
we'll
funny.
be there and everywhere, but when I pass away, most of us will go together then. We'll all be whole again.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful being able to. Dylan wanted to scatter Milli's ashes up at the cliff where we got engaged, and at first I said yes. So then I was like, actually, I don't want that to happen. But he has a ring made. We gave a little bit to his mum for her garden. I obviously have had her ashes put into my tattoo, 2 of my tattoos now, and then the rest of it is in her little urn here. But yeah, like I kind of like having bits everywhere because it's just like, spreads their spirit more, as if it's not already everywhere anyway. But no,
that's it. Well, like I said, I wear the pendant that's got his ashes in it. I also been a hairdresser. I gave him a haircut before he was taken away.
You did.
So I actually have 2 beads. So that's got his hair in it.
Yeah, beautiful.
So I've got the hair in his beads. And then I was very fussy and I got a tattoo. And obviously in the memory boxes, you get different things from the hospital, and they had ink prints. So
it's his footprints.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
beautiful.
His exact footprint. I'm like, it has to be exact same size.
Yeah.
As much detail as possible.
Yeah, that's the same as the hands on here. Like, it's even got like the bits that didn't ink in properly. Like, they're so perfect.
I do, but
yeah, that's so perfect.
I'm like, I need his feet on me. So we did that. So basically, as horrible as the whole situation was, with how it all went, it sort of gave us closure. So the day that we left the funeral home and made the arrangements and said our last little goodbye, as much as we wanted just to take him home, we got closure.
Yeah. The shittest closure ever. What it is.
Yeah. So, with obviously being a recessive condition, I mentioned before that we have a 1 in 4 chance of any future pregnancies that the condition could be there. We were basically told that we could look at 2 options, which would be going down an IVF road or having a natural conception and doing your screening and testing for it at certain gestations. Anyway, so I'm proactive. I like to have my ducks in a row and I like to know answers. So I inquired and asked about the IVF journey. And obviously because of testing for ARPKD, it's a specialised test. It's not your standard screening that's done. So I wanted to make sure, what was involved with that. So inquired about the IVF road and basically they said that they would be able to do the testing before, testing of the embryos.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't require Felix's DNA to be able to accurately confirm if they could actually test for it. So that would mean that I would have to make a phone call to the lab in New South Wales and be like, hey, by chance, do you have my CVS sample of my son's DNA? And that was an obstacle I didn't want to go through. I have only recently found out a couple of weeks ago when I had my final interview with Pre-Gen, because they do an interview process and questionnaire and that sort of thing for the research. So it was only a couple of weeks ago that I actually found out that there's a high chance that even with the testing of the embryos before, that actual cycle starts, that they would still probably require you to have a CVS or amniocentesis to just make sure. Because I was like, well,
which as we know can cause a high risk of miscarriage. Yeah. It's a risk. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I would have gone the IVF road to bypass having that testing done because that was horrific. And then to find out that if we went IVF, we'd still probably have to do it. I would have been not in a good way.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much my
I feel
story.
like I'm hearing my own story.
Yeah.
So did you end up getting Felix's DNA or you didn't go down that path?
No, so that was pretty much it. I just couldn't make that call. And so
then your relationship didn't survive post Felix?
So it was going all right for a few months and then it started getting a little bit difficult, a bit more complicated. And like I said, really the way that I see it is there was that additional support needed for all parties involved.
Yeah.
And it just didn't happen, which is what sort of started the failing of the relationship. I wouldn't say the whole time it was starting to fail afterwards. There were still good points and we were still, there were weeks where we were fine. And then basically, we were talking, we spoke to Dr. Homer at my 6-week checkup. And we're like, okay, you're the person who's seen inside my body. How long do we have to wait if we were to try again? Just to have the answers there and then so that we knew. And basically he said a minimum wait time would be 6 months. He's like, because you can't have vaginal delivery, it would be a cesarean. So a minimum wait would be 6 months. So anyway,
my OB said 12, strictly 12. So
well,
that's
I was
interesting.
Actually expecting 18 months.
I'm
And then
surprised
we
they
went
said
6 months. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay.
And so I just
Anyway.
wanted to ask before I forget.
Yeah.
So when you had the appointments with Jeans Australia, what's her name?
Dimilm.
Yeah, and so you didn't pay for any of those appointments or anything because
So
you're in this.
the counselling I did.
Okay.
So I think like the first initial counselling appointment with her was
It's
like
$600.
$600 odd dollars. But also because of that stage, I had also hit my Medicare levy.
Okay.
So I got a fair chunk of that back. And I
Because
think
we were supposed to have an appointment with her a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, you know what, I can't pay any more appointments. Like, this is insane. And it was almost just going to be like a second opinion to what we were already knowing from Monash. And when I spoke to my genetic counsellor from Monash, she's like, Rochelle, I just feel like she's going to tell you the exact same things we've told you. Like, and she was so fine with me having another opinion, but I was trying to do it to save money on the genetic screening we were having done. She goes, I've worked with Dr. Mills a lot. She's going to tell you to have this, all the testing anyway. So save yourself the $600 and just do the testing.
Yeah.
So I was just curious whether you paid for all of that as well.
Yeah. So, but I had already hit my Medicare levy, so I got a higher rebate back. So it worked out that with my rebate, it only really cost me like $30 to $60.
Wow. Yeah, we hit our rebates last year.
Yeah, I got a fair chunk of that back. So yeah, that definitely helped because it's like, oh my gosh, after all of the medical costs that you're going through and MARTA and like being a private patient, like it adds up and it adds up really quick. So yeah, when I hit that safety net, like
definitely helps.
It was like, this is great.
I know.
It's more affordable.
So you had an appointment. He said you only had to wait 6 months post T incision, which would have been like December because you had little Felix in June.
Yeah.
It's now.
So we're now in February. So, like I said,
you guys separated in when?
We separated in November. So basically, with how it all planned out, like I said, it wasn't all bad. There were bad days, but there were good days and there were good weeks. And we basically sat there and we talked and we're like, do we look at trying again or what? Like, do we do a natural conception? Do we look at the IVF? And I'm like, I'm just worried that I'm going to have a CVS done. Like, that would be the reason I'd go that way. Anyway, so we were naughty and it was only 4 months after I had Felix that basically we're like, do we try again? Do we not? And we could say it was a moment of weakness on both parties. Anyway, so we tried again. So I am now pregnant as well. And obviously we separated. The funny thing about it all, which I know is really not that funny, but it's just a weird situation. So basically the reason that we looked at and said, well, do we try again, is because it would give us the same sort of months of when Felix was due to be born. I obviously had everything ready for a baby to come home.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have thousands of dollars worth of clothes sitting here that suit a winter baby.
Let me just, that is my pink, pink girl's closet for a winter baby. Let me show you. I
have 4 crates of clothes. And I'm like, okay, do we look at going the same sort of time frame, because obviously that will suit. I had a strict no baby ban on November to February because we are at capacity in our family that time of the year. We've got 2, so one niece is in December. Dylan's son is in December. Then we've got Christmas. And then there's my other niece in January, and then Lincoln's in January, and back to school. I'm like, we're at capacity. There's a ban between November and February. Yep. There's no babies happening then.
Yeah.
Anyway, so basically it came to it, and we're like, if we want a baby for next year, it's now, or we're pretty much going to wait for a while. And like I said, probably a moment of weakness on both parts. And so we conceived.
Fuck.
The dates didn't line up to start off with. So I'm regular with my cycle normally. It's normally only between.
You were only 4 months
6.
postpartum, though.
I was 4 months postpartum, yeah. And even from then, so pretty much 5 weeks postpartum, that's when I got my first period. And then it was pretty much your normal, sometimes it's like 26, 28 days. That's my cycle.
Wow.
So I can track it quite well. And normally it's completely fine. So according to my last period, this baby should be born in middle of July.
Yeah.
But moving forward, when I started to have some of the early scans, that's not the case. So
Okay.
Felix's due date, his official due date, was the 10th of August. A lot of the scans to start off with, when we were in early gestation, were showing the exact same measurements for our 10th of August 2022.
Shut up.
So, yeah, it wasn't until we did the internal ultrasound where we could get a bit more of an accurate measurement that we based her due date off as the 7th of August.
Did you just say her?
Her. So I'm
You're having
impatient.
your
I
little
told you that
girl.
beforehand.
You're
So,
having your little girl.
I'm having a little girl. So, yeah, her due date is based on the 7th of August, but much like
you'll have to,
yourself, you'll be like me where you can't go into a spontaneous labour.
Yeah, so
I'll have to have a cesarean.
At what gestation are they saying?
Well, we're waiting at the moment, but I'm suspecting I will be around the 37-week mark. Just depending on how everything goes. With Lincoln, I was in early stages and dilated at 36 weeks.
Yeah, so they might even put you in sooner.
It might even be beforehand, but I'm sort of saying I'd suggest probably around the 37-week mark. I will ask the questions in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
So obviously being a natural conception, with with the dates in line, pretty much we separated a few days after she would have been conceived, really.
Jesus.
With where she's measuring. But like I said, my dates don't line up to that at all.
How strange.
It is so bizarre. So we're like, okay, well, Felix had something to do with it.
Are you still chatting? What's he feeling? Because obviously he really wanted a little girl as well.
We have our moments. I haven't seen him since December. But every now and again there'll be like little bits of communication. I'll keep him updated with what's going on.
Is he drinking again?
No.
Yay, that's fine.
So throughout the whole, it's one thing that I am incredibly proud of for him, is that the whole situation, he has not picked up a drink at all.
That's fucking amazing.
So
I hate alcohol.
There was days where he would, he'd be like, he felt bad because he's like, I feel like I need a drink. And I said, but so do I. Like, we are going through something that not everyone has, gets to go through or experience. Wanting to drink is completely normal. Like, it's not that alcohol.
It is a lot of strength to not.
Yeah. So the fact that you're not, you need to be so incredibly proud of yourself, because I said I am. So yes, unfortunately, I got to a point where obviously he needs additional help. He needs to see a psychologist and work through with everything for himself. But I just couldn't do it to myself or Lincoln. And basically there was a situation that happened and I said, you got to go. I don't know whether it will be, I said, we either call it quits now and you leave. And at this stage, it was in that unsure of whether or not I was pregnant then or not.
Yeah.
And I said, you need to leave. We either call it quits now and you go, or you leave and you work on yourself, put effort into us, effort into Lincoln and having acceptance for him, and show me that you're trying to help yourself, but you just not be here. we still be together, but you're not here. That probably lasted 3 days. And then he was like, no, I don't want to put effort into anything. So that's pretty much where we're like, okay.
See you later.
Done. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's been a lot for me.
Fuck.
Trying to do it on my own again.
Which is what you said you
when
didn't
that was
want to
always
do.
a big trauma. And then also being after a massive loss, because you're stuck in the position of wanting to be excited but wanting to protect yourself. So basically with the testing too, because she has a 25% chance of having ARPKD.
So how many weeks are you?
I'm 15, just over 15 now.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically your CBS is available from 11 weeks gestation.
Mm-hmm.
So they booked me in right at 11 weeks to have the testing done. We initially thought my placenta was anterior again. So I was like, great, this is great for the testing. But then I was also concerned about would it attach to scar tissue and create issues later on.
Fuck.
But I went down to the MATA appointment and no, my placenta is posterior. So obviously the normal textbook placement for placentas. Most of the time when it is a posterior placenta, you can still do a CBS because obviously you've got 2 ways of coming through the stomach or obviously transvaginally and go through the cervix. Well, my placenta didn't want to play the game. And it is in a position where it was not safe to perform the procedure because either way it would pierce the amniotic sac, which obviously puts her at a lot higher risk. So that was at 11 weeks. And they basically said, give it 3 weeks because obviously your placenta will grow, get larger, and generally it migrates and moves. And normally, obviously, everyone's different, but normally it moves up higher. So like it might be a bit more easily accessible. So I went back last week to have the second attempt of a CBS. And in his words, it was, your placenta is more posterior than it was 3 weeks ago.
Great.
So I couldn't have the CBS done.
Oh, Alyssa.
Yet again, it would pierce the amniotic sac and wouldn't be good. So now I'm back down to the MATA next week to have an amniocentesis done. So I'll be obviously over 16 weeks, which is when they can do the amniocentesis. And it could be 2 to 3 weeks before I find out the results. So I personally find that really hard to deal with because at the moment all I want to know is if she's okay. And I can't. And there's a high chance that depending on the delay with the results, it may not be until I'm over 20 weeks before I have it. So we're hoping everything plays its game and goes well and that we are able to get answers in a couple of weeks. But regardless, like where I'm sitting at, regardless of what the results are, I'm not having the termination due to medical reasoning.
No, fuck. Yeah. In your current scans at the moment, can they see the amniotic fluid? Can they see kidneys and all those kinds of things yet or not?
At the moment, amniotic fluid looks good because obviously I'm producing it.
That's right.
No problems there. The last time, like last week when I went to the MATA, because basically every other testing's been put on hold, because when they do the CBS or the amniocentesis, they'll do the chromosome testing. So I haven't had a nuchal translucency scan, so your 12-week scan. I haven't had any of that because we are basically waiting for the results of this to come forward before progressing with any other testing. So because of the fact that I hadn't had that nuchal translucency scan, I actually had one of the senior sonographers do the scan for me to check where the placenta and everything was last week. Because I mentioned I hadn't had a proper scan. When they said that they couldn't perform the CBS, she basically turned to the doctor and said, well, I'm doing an anatomy scan. I said, we need to make sure that
like
everything is meant to be there.
For fucking sure.
And she's like, because I don't want it to get to a point we find out results and go, okay, yep, everything's fine. She doesn't have ARPKD, but then do it like the 20-week scan and be like, there's only half a skull developing.
Right. Yeah.
So she's like, I want to do a scan, and he's like, yep, sure, go for it.
Okay.
So they did. She did an anatomy scan for me, and through the anatomy scan, she could actually bring up his kidney, her kidney. So she does have two little kidneys.
Yay!
You just hope that they work.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah. So the journey's not over yet.
Fuck.
We have our good days and our bad days.
Gosh.
So
you're on a roller coaster. You're on a fucking roller coaster. I don't know about you, but I don't like roller coasters.
I like them when they're a nice thrill finish, not for life.
Yeah, not you like a dream world one or
they're not fun. Yeah.
No. Fuck.
Yeah.
So much. There's so much. I really hope you get to bring your little girl home safely.
Yes, hopefully in a couple of weeks I will know if she's going to be affected by ARPKD or not. All I keep telling myself is there's a 75% chance that she's okay.
That's right. Yeah.
75% chance.
Yeah, which is big. It's big.
So the statistics of a baby who has ARPKD is 1 out of 25,000 babies born. So then I also sit there as well and go, what are my chances of having 2 out of 50,000 babies born?
Yeah. So. Ours was 1 in 50,000, but it's still fucking scary, right? It's like, and even Monash, like our genetic counselor from Monash said, it's 1 in 50,000, and Dr. Coleman said we should, I don't think you need to get tested. It's very unlikely. And then Melody from Monash was like, but it is likely. It's unlikely, but it can happen. And then she's like, there was this one family once that it happened twice too. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. And it's that you sit and you're like, yeah, I know that statistically the chances are low. But still when you break it down, it's 25% chance for me.
I know.
Yeah.
It's fucked. It's so fucked.
It's hard. But we'll get there. We'll work through it.
Yeah. Day by day.
But currently she is a snuggler. Every scan I have, she is cuddling the placenta or putting it in her mouth, the cord in her mouth.
Oh, is that normal?
Yeah, she just... One of the scans we had, it was really quite funny. She's obviously grabbed her cord and chucked it over her left shoulder. And then, so you can see the cord just sort of sitting up over. And then she's grabbed it at one stage. She's like,
that's in my way. I'm just going to pop it over here.
Sass already. I'll throw it over her shoulder. So, throwing it over her shoulder. And then you can actually see her, grab the cord. Like, this is in a 3D scan. Grab the cord and she's put it up to her mouth. And then,
Is that dangerous? Is she being naughty? Is it?
I'd say it'd be like just sucking the thumb, but hey, look, there's something else here. I'll put this in my mouth and see what it does.
Oh my gosh. I love how much movement she's making.
Yeah.
Milli never moved. I feel so stupid now. Like I hate that my first thought when you just said that was like, oh my gosh, is that dangerous? Like I hate that every thought I think of is that says something bad's going to happen. But Milli she did snuggle into the placenta all the time. She was literally always like this or like this. And we thought it was so cute. But now it was like, no, she wasn't moving because she had no muscle tone. Sucks. Hindsight, hey.
A little personality to me inside.
I know. Well, this has been very educational, very eye-opening, very all the things. Very sad, very beautiful, very... Is that Felix's little footprints and handprints behind you?
This one here is Lincoln's when he was 8 weeks old. This one here is Felix's.
Look how little they
So
are.
he was so tiny.
I know.
I know, I didn't realise the difference. Like, obviously, 8 weeks early and 8 weeks earthside. So, like, the size of just the feet alone.
So much growth.
Difference. Yeah. But yeah.
One of my friends...
So when Felix was born, like, even though he was 8 weeks early, he was still 4 pounds 12 ounces. So he was almost.
I was going to ask you before, 4 pound 12. So what's that in kilos?
I have no idea what it is in kilos. I learned babies by
I know, it's so...
by their pounds. And that sort of
I used to know pounds, but now, because Milli was 3.434, she was 3.4 kilos.
So 2.15 kilos.
No.
So he was at 32 weeks. So we knew that he was going to be a bigger baby, so we expected that he'd be an 9 pound.
Wow.
Baby. Lincoln, when he was born, he was 8 pounds 7.5.
Yeah.
And then this one here with scans, she's looking like she's going to be a bigger baby too. So I obviously bake them bigger.
Yeah, well, let's hope she's just born so perfect at 37-week planned cesarean and comes out beautiful and healthy. Yeah. We pray that for you.
Tonight. All we can do is hope at the moment.
Yep, absolutely. And so if her due date, just entertain me here, if her due date is the 7th of August and you have to have her 3 weeks earlier.
So it would be around the 15th of July.
Milli's birthday is the 14th of July.
Okay. I'll let you know when we have a cesarean booked.
Well, I have loads of beautiful baby girl winter clothes here, so...
I know, that's the hard part. I see things and I'm like, oh. So when I was pregnant with Felix, it was really bad because I love Disney, and it was 100 years of Disney. So I had so much Disney stuff. So a lot of my clothes I can actually reuse because it's a bit more unisex.
Is it unisex? Ours is purely girl. Like, ours is pink fucking everything.
Basically, when I was about the 29, 30 weeks, and we knew that he pretty much wouldn't be coming home, I took all of the stuff from home and put it in a storage container. Because I'm like, I can't have that hitting me in the face. So I've actually only bought it back probably about a week or so ago. It was pretty much the first time that I could walk into the storage container and not burst into tears. So I've bought all of it back, and I was a big brave girl, and I went through the clothes that afternoon. I didn't cry, but there was probably only a handful of things that are like stereotypical for a boy. So I'm like, cool. But, online shopping is really bad when you're trying not to buy anything at the moment.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to bring myself to buy anything. I like the only things we need really, I mean, if we were having a boy, it would be very different, but like the only things we really need is our car capsule and our pram. And I like refuse to buy them until I birth a healthy baby. Like, I truly think I'll be sending Dylan out while I'm in hospital. Like, okay, now you can go buy those things. But
she's fine. Quick, go shopping.
Literally, because I cannot bear the thought of having to return things to Baby Bunting again. I'm just not. I can't.
Yeah. See, I can't. I said to Dylan, he's like, well, we'll just look at returning things. And I'm like, I can't.
I ended up doing it. I thought it was amazing. I didn't realize Baby Bunting had a return policy for neonatal death and stillbirth, miscarriage, etc. I didn't know, which was amazing. But I wasn't going to, but my friend works for the one in Adelaide, and she said, Rochelle, the only reason I think you should is because you have a warranty on your things. So, for example, your pram, which is what, $1,500, $2,000, whatever you pay for it, it has a warranty. So if it sits there for the next 12 months and then you have a baby and then it gets used and your wheels break, you're not covered because you've wasted all that time. So I was like, so valid. So I returned most of my big item things that had a warranty that I was concerned about. So your car capsule, well, of course you don't fucking need that anyway. That wasn't something I wanted to store. So yeah, I've returned all of those things.
Yeah. I basically just said to Dylan, I'm like, we need to wait for genetic results to come through to see what
it looks like for us.
I'm like, instantly. I just can't do it yet. I need answers first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you today. I'm so glad you came on, and I'm so proud of you. I think it's so brave considering you're in this limbo moment, and I have no doubt that people are going to be listening and wanting to know how your little girl is going. So please keep me updated, and I will update the show notes as we get more news.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you so much. I really, really can't wait to hear some good news for you, and I'll be sending you a beautiful little pink Disney outfit.
Thank you so much for actually breaking the silence, because it's the case. No one knows what to say. No one knows what to do. From this experience for myself, basically in the future, my schedule's a little full at the moment. I'm a little bit too preoccupied, but I want to actually get into do more study and go into counselling. Because one of my biggest things that I would love to do is, obviously everyone's got so different situations of what happened, but you feel so alone when you're at the hospital. You don't know, like sometimes you just want to talk about your baby, but then you don't know whether that's appropriate to talk about your baby, like with what's just happened. And like for me, I would use the example of knowing that the day that you are going to have your baby is going to be the day of their birth and death. That's horrific. You're walking the corridors to the surgical, like the suite and the birthing suite, feeling like you're on death row. Like you want to be excited, you want to see your baby, but you have so much dread that comes with it because you know that it's not going to end well. So going through that situation and feeling like you've got no one there who can relate and understand fully, that's why I want to get into it, so that if someone's going through a similar situation, that I can pretty much be like, call me and I will come up and I will probably cry with you because I'm a sympathy crier and it's something that's close to my heart, but I can sit there and be like, tell me about your baby.
My midwives that cried with me. So one of my friends is studying midwifery, and she said, "What tips can you give me?" And I said, "Cry with the people, like the midwives that hugged me and cried. Obviously, no fake cries, but like I fucking loved their crying with me and hugging me because it just felt like, yeah, this is really shit, and you get it, like the heart, like, and then not that anyone was hard, but like I just, and then they'd be like
compassion.
And like they'd genuinely be excited when they came into my room. They'd be like, hey, they'd poke their head in, hello, and I'm like, hi, and then I'd just burst into tears. Or I'd be like, yeah, we're having a good day. I'd be like, do you want to see her? And I'd show them all my videos and my photos of Milli. Like literally she was on level 6 and I was on level 10, so it was like this. When they came on shift, or my social workers or whoever, I was just like, the ones that really gave a fuck are the ones I remember, you know, like they cried with me, they hugged me, they loved Milli with me, and then they would be like, okay, what drugs can I get you? And they'd go get me a heap of pain relief or whatever. But it was like, yeah, like those ones that cried with me and sat with me, gave me time.
So when we were back into the normal, like suites, so they actually put me in the children's ward, so I wasn't with the maternity section. But the maternity and children's ward are on the same floor and it's shared by the same nursing team. So that's why they put me there, and they put me close to the front door. So basically I wasn't disturbed by anyone. But like I had quite a few visits from the paediatrician, like a couple of days after. The anaesthetist, he even came back around after. He wanted to come have a look at Felix too. And then obviously my regular visits from my obstetrician, Dr. Homer. His first time when he came into the room, like after I had him, his first visit, all he said, and he's trying so well to hold it together, he just said, he cried from the get-go. He just wanted to live. So it was just, that's what I mean by I absolutely loved my team that I had. My 2 main midwives, like, one of them's found me on Facebook, so we connect and we talk and we've caught up since.
That.
And then the other midwife, who was the one who I had all day, she's also She was the one who was associated with the Dr. Homer's room, so the midwife that he worked with, but she's also known as the bereavement midwife for up there.
Oh, I love that.
So I've been in contact a few times, and it was really quite funny because I hadn't seen her. Like, sometimes I see her when I go to the grocery shop, and hadn't seen her for a little bit to tell her sort of an update of what's going on. And the other week I got a message. She's like, "So how are you going? I've seen that you're on the schedule for Dr. Homer," because normally at this point is when I'm due to see her. Yeah. So I was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm back."
It's funny because I went into the chemist the other week to get ordanzatron, which is what you take when you're nauseous in the pregnancy. Yeah. But I was getting it because I was nauseous doing IVF, but I wasn't planning the pregnancy. And the lady in the chemist was like, "Oh, why are you getting ordanzatron?" And I was like, "No, nothing exciting, just IVF." And she's like, "Oh."
They all start to sort of keep tabs and be like, "Oh, what's happening here?"
I know.
It is beautiful. It's good to have that good support.
Absolutely.
That people out there actually care and do think about you.
And they just want us to have babies, right? Like healthy babies to bring home.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for breaking the silence.
My pleasure. It actually is my pleasure. I really, really love it. It's so crazy that I literally put myself in a space to cry for hours and hear these horrific stories. And I sit here and I compare a lot in my own head about my journey. But I also just think, like, I'm so glad that there is this space because, you know, your experience was so different to mine. And I do truly wish we found that in utero because everything would have been different. But I know you say, like, it's just absolutely torture when you know, but to be able to pre-plan is also a really big blessing. And I cry so much when, like, your story today is just like hurts my soul so much because we didn't know in utero. And I wish I got to have that skin to skin immediately. And I wish my family got to meet Milli and hold her. And so that makes me so sad. But I also know that, like, her story is her story and it all played out how it was meant to, but it just sucks.
It's cruel. It's honestly cruel.
Yeah, she never cried and she never... Yeah, it just sucks. It just fucking sucks. But it sucks for you as well. It doesn't make it any better. It's still shit, but it's just shit.
One thing I read that helps is grief is the purest form of love.
Yeah. I couldn't have loved her any fucking more. And I couldn't be hurting any fucking more either. Thank you so much for sharing. Please keep me updated on your beautiful little girl in utero. I really pray that she's healthy. Thank you so much.
I'll let you know how it goes and I'll find out results.
Yeah, please do. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, beautiful. Thank you for listening to Little Life, Big Loss. If you are here because you've experienced baby loss recently or a long time ago, I am so sorry. If you have never experienced the loss of a baby, but you are here to learn, thank you. If you are here because you have just had the news that you have to make some really tough decisions, I am so sorry. I hope these podcasts give you the help and the guidance that you need. If any of today's conversation has triggered any uneasy emotions for you, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Lifeline.org. Another organisation working specifically with pre- and postnatal depression and anxiety is Panda, Panda. You can find them at Panda.org.au. And remember that postnatal depression and anxiety does not discriminate. It can affect both men and women, mums and dads. Please seek help from your GP, psychologist, your local hospital, a midwife, OB, Lifeline or Panda. I love you and I miss you, Mary.